Welcome to Flutespace, a platform created to show interesting stories related to life as a flutist and discovering inspiring content in form of a podcast. You can catch up with us on our Instagram at theflutespace, and you can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. All these links can be found in our link tree in the description. And if you want to support us, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/theflutespace, or you can join us on Patreon.
Have you ever thought about how it is to get into the production and cultural management field? Pablo Valero shows us an insight on how is his work and in what is he busy now. A very interesting musician that brings us a totally different topic that inspires us a lot. Also, he will share with us many advices to apply on our own careers.
Hi, Pablo. Thank you so much for being with us today.
On Flutespace.
On Flutespace, yes.
I think we now talk to a few people who are mostly orchestra musicians, and so this is quite different because you do a lot more things than just being a flutist.
Yeah, but maybe we can start with your career path. Maybe you can tell us a bit about your studies and how everything evolved then.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be in this podcast. I really admire your work. I really admire Paco also, whom, well, as you know, we were not just a work college, studies colleagues, but also very good friends. And yeah, well, as you said, I'm a flutist. I'm almost a former flutist, I must say. I don't play as much as I would like. Of course, I don't play professionally right now, just because my career took a different path. But yeah, I mean, I was, of course, a professional flutist. You can call it that way if you earn your keep by playing. But well, I started studying flute in Margas Conservatory in southern Spain. At the same time, I was studying with another teacher, which also Paco studied with him, Juan Carlos Jornet, from our hometown's orchestra. And well, after that, I'm gonna keep it in a nutshell. All my career. After that, I came to Liège to study, to complete my bachelor studies there. Then I came back to Spain. I kept on studying there with my teacher there in Granada, and after that I just kept trying to find my way in the music world, not just studying but also playing, and that little by little took me to work in other fields of the music world, such as the concert organization, production, audiovisual production also. And I also did a master in cultural management, although that's not a landmark in my career. But yeah, eventually I started working a lot in this kind of back-end part of music and organizing stuff, especially my own stuff, my own concerts, my own recordings, and that little by little took me to professionalize that line of work. And well, here we are after that, and that was like 6-7 years ago, and right now you could say I'm fully professional on that field, on the logistical technical part.
Did your flute studies in Spain and Liège, did they prepare you kind of for the cultural management? Did you already start something there along those lines?
I didn't study the technicalities of being a cultural manager in neither in Liège nor in Spain while I was in the conservatory. But it wouldn't be fair saying that it didn't prepare me, because I think one of the skills that I appreciate the most, and people that I work with appreciate the most, is that I'm a musician in my heart. And that is something that you feel whenever you work, even when you send emails, when you do the most basic stuff of cultural management. You can say when someone is a trained musician, not because of the training, but because of the uh, emotional attachment that has to music, and how you treat your profession in that way. Mm, I'm not saying that's bad, but sometimes you find people working in the cultural management that doesn't really have that kind of connection with arts or with music, and it's kind of sad in the terms that you can feel it. How for them this is just another job, and not something that they are really attached to.
And it's kind of an advantage then to be a musician, because then you
Of course, because
also
you work
know.
with musicians, so you know a lot
Yeah.
more about how everything
Yeah.
works and
Yeah.
about just playing and performing. Was there a specific moment or like some event that happened that made you like take the choice to go into the more like management sector? Do you remember how that was?
Well, I didn't take the choice. Like there wasn't a point in which I say, okay, now I'm a cultural manager and not a musician. It came naturally and with the time, and actually, there was a point when I realized that I didn't have enough time to study and to be a professional flutist as I dreamt maybe at some point before. But I think that the most transcendental events for me was when I finished my master's studies and I was alone in the professional field. Well, I think this is something that we all have felt. When you are kind of alone in the jungle and don't know what to do and need to find your own way and all of that. Well, I started, as I said before, doing my own projects. I mean, it's difficult for us when we are very young, when we are, I don't know, 22, 23 years old, to start having concerts, to start to get those concerts that you want to play in this with this orchestra or record this thing or the other. So I started doing my own in a very small scale, and well, as I said, I did my own concerts for my chamber music group that I was having at the time. I started doing some very small projects in audiovisual and recordings, and that was like the start of the snowball that kept on rolling, and in a very few years, the line of work I was working not only for myself in those terms, but also for other people, and then therefore professionalizing that line. But that was, yeah, when I was in Spain, back in Spain after I finished my masters, very young, very unexperienced, but very eager to know the world.
And coming back to your food studies, what
Yeah.
influence did studying abroad have on you?
Well, it was a breaking point, that's for sure. Not only because of the fact that I studied in a place where I had very nice influences, musical influences, but also the fact that you are again left alone in an unknown world for you, and you need to find your own way, and that really made a difference in the Pablo that was before going abroad and after. And well, I studied flute in the Conservatoire Royal de Liège, as I said, with Toon Fred. I'm sure that you've heard of him, and that was really, as I said, a breaking point in my career. Studying with Toon made me understand music in so many different ways, not just flute, but music itself. And it's hard to find words to describe how big of an impact it was to me to studying with him on how he treated art, how he approached it to musical performances. It was, for me, working with him was I stopped reading scores to start doing music, you could say, when with him.
Oh, that's such a
That's
good.
super beautiful. No, everyone
Yeah.
could like wish to have a teacher like that that opens
Yeah.
really like the love to
Yeah.
music to it. Well, so one of your biggest project is, I hope I will pronounce it correctly, Courtiers, right?
It's actually an English word, so it's courtiers. It's a
Courtiers. Okay, not
yeah,
French.
yeah. It's I'm not. You speak French, right? And
Yes.
I'm not sure the word in French it is, but it's like a. Well, as you said, it's one of my biggest projects. It's actually the company that I run right now, through which I do most of my work. It's we call it a creative agency and the audiovisual production company, you could say. But basically, through this agency, we try to bring to the arts and to the music industry all the things that we felt from the outside that it was lacking in terms of creativity, logistics, also technicalities, and all of that. But I think that I stopped you in the question. So please.
Yeah, we just wanted to ask you, well, yeah, to explain a bit about it and also to like say how did it start and did you start it alone or are you working with someone there?
How did you?
Yeah,
create
how
a
did
group
you
of
create
people?
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I started the idea came a lot before than the realization of it and the company and all of that. And the ideas, the core ideas that formed this company came in to me actually when I started working in the management or production field. As I said, when one of the things that I appreciate the most when I work with people in the backstage is that they know music or they know uh, all what's around music, that you don't need to explain that a symphony is divided in movements and what the movements means and all of that, right? And when I started working in several projects, I realized how lack how much they were lacking of this approach from us, from the people that they were working for, actually for the musicians, which I realized in the end that it's mostly our fault and not theirs for not being more um, open to explain this. But that's another story. And but yeah, at that time I realized how much they were lacking, and as you could imagine, I was very young. I was 22 years old when I started, and an experience, and even because of that I was having an enormous amount of work in different concert series, festivals, because they needed this profile of someone who understands music, but also the business part of the technical part or the logistics. And at that point I said, I'm working alone on this, but there I will need a team of 10 people more for doing this correctly. And well, that this is something that also happens to you when you're young and unexperienced, that you think that you can do everything. And I started not only organizing the stuff but also taking active part in designs, in concert production, in logistics, in web development, in recordings, in audio and video recordings. And at that point I said, man, we really need someone who knows how to do these things in
Yeah, because this sounds like 24 hours
yeah,
of work
it
per
was
day.
it was
And like learning everything from scratch and searching for all the answers.
yeah, that
was a lot of work.
I mean, it was 24 hours work. It is still a 24 hours a day work. But well, at that point, I realized that I could really form a team and to have not only me working in all the different fields that I think that I thought that music needed, as you said, as you know, when organizing a concert, you need many professionals to do small things, such as the poster design, the notes to the program, helping the audience to come in, helping the musicians in the backstage, promoting, selling the tickets, marketing part, recording. So somehow I thought that I wanted to cover all these fields from a musician's perspective, and those were the ideals that came to realize or came to reality in this company, in Courtiers. And that was, as I said, when I was 22, 6 years ago, almost 7. Right now we are a team of many professionals, which I think we are 7 actually. They come and go, but the core is from 6 to 7, and each of us is focused on one thing. There are people that are focused on recordings, people that are focused on marketing, on design, web design also, and that's my main project, as you said.
Coming up with these ideals, and I'm sure that's really important when you're creating a company or something, and you have to set your list of, well, they're not goals, they're just, these are the things that we want to focus. Standards. Well, what did you realize that kind of musicians were doing wrong? Like, in what ways did they not make bigger changes in the cultural scene? And maybe they are much better now than before. But yeah.
It's not only. I don't think the main problem. I said that one of the problems was that we didn't communicate enough, or we don't have this connection usually with the technical part. I imagine myself or a musician in a hall playing a concert that usually just comes in to the stage, plays, and goes out, right? He is or she is not really connected to all what's around that concert, which is fine. I mean, we are musicians and are paid to play, actually. But I think that this is something that it's going better in conservatories and music colleges. But one of the things that we lack the most is the conscious of all what's around a concert, right? Or producing a musical event. Because if we are not aware of all the many small parts that play in a concert, I think we end up being just musicians or just performers. And at this point, and I truly think that the musician of today needs to be much more competent in not only playing an instrument, and I think music needs that, especially classical music needs us to be
and not like
super
a
active
artist, not really
in
full,
not only playing.
that's
I mean,
true.
playing it's not enough right now. Good playing. I mean,
with your job, you have a lot of like insights in the cultural scene and the music industry. How do you see the cultural scene? Are there things that you like, for example, about the cultural scene in Europe, and are there things that you would change or that you would like see as, oh, they should be changed?
I think that this is a question that I've been trying to answer for a long time. And I think that it's a question that we always have had. I don't mean right now, but also in the centuries before. We always, I mean, I work, as you said, with many orchestras, with many concert promoters and everything. And the $1 million question is always how to fill up the hall, right? How to reach young audiences. But what I can say is that this is a concern that has been around for centuries, and somehow we are still here. I mean that even if the cultural scene has many things that should address in terms of how to be more, I don't know, close to the real people, to the ground people, you could say. I have a lot of faith to on how culture is going to or is adapting to our days. Mainly because culture is us, and us trying to disconnect the culture from the people, which is something that many concert halls and orchestras end up doing. Maybe not consciously, but indirectly they tend to disconnect that cable that connects people with art. And I can just say that I think that we have a challenge in finding the balance between using culture to represent what we are right now in 2023, and also to honor where we come from, right? Where our cultural standards, European cultural standards, are.
I mean, yeah, as you
No,
said,
I
this
think
has been a question for a while now, and I think it's good that in a way that more conservatories and academies, they are having more of these kinds of subjects where they bring up these questions. But I found it always a bit silly that they always ask in a way like, oh, how? Because, for example, in Antwerp, there was a subject that was arts in society. And so, like, how do you bring the society into concert halls and everything? And it's exactly the same question. And everyone has different ideas. And I think everyone keeps forgetting that people have interests and many interests, and among some of these interests somehow music will come by and people will go to concerts if only there's such a big variety like is now, that people will find it, and if it's more approachable, or that they are being able to see all of these all of this variety, and that they can see their interests, like they can recognize their interests within that. I think that's how people will go to concerts. But then in schools, I feel like people really focus on certain things, which is good, but it's kind of also making people stuck in a way. They don't see the big picture.
yeah, I feel like in schools very often it's like very far from the reality the way they teach those kind of subjects, because I don't know, it doesn't have anything to do with real concerts or with real life. I feel like, I don't know how you
I
see
think
that.
that as long as culture or concerts or all what's around the cultural industry represents who we are in the streets, who we as normal people, not just musicians, are, will be fine. Concerts will be always full. I mean, for instance, here we are usually very pessimistic about concert halls and who is going to classical music or who doesn't. Um, just to bring some light to this, for instance, in the Spanish National Orchestra where I work a lot with them, the national auditorium has 3 concerts every week with the orchestra, and they are almost full always. And each day they manage to fill up the halls, mostly because, and I think that those concerts where you have more audience or more an audience that is more varied are those who have either music that it's very appealing to us, or musicians that are very connected to the to today's world. For instance, this weekend I was working with them, and they presented Sheku Kane Mason, you know, the cellist, the British cellist, which I really admire him. his figure as a today's musician. That okay, he plays wonderfully the cello, but he's also super active in communicating, and I think that he's really someone who we should look up to, and the results are there. I mean, the concert was filled up more than 2,000 tickets for 3 days in a row. So it's a good
So
thing.
you just mentioned that you work at the National Orchestra of Spain, but you also work in the cultural scene in the US. You work at a piano festival in Miami, and we wanted to ask how, or is there any difference in the cultural scene in Europe and in the US?
Well, I've been working in this festival, as you said, since I think it's 2018 or 17, and well, just to mention, it's a festival that I really admire because it's somehow very different to the usual flow that you find in festivals, not only in the US but also here in Europe. And
In what way is it different?
the the festival is called Miami International Piano Festival. It's different in the ways that they don't program musicians because if they are renowned or very famous or are going to to sell many tickets or something, but they really look for those extraordinary young musicians that they can help to develop their career. Their main motto is to help to build careers to young musicians, and of course, they've been doing this for 25 years now, and they've really built some very big careers to renowned young pianists. That they were young and they are not young anymore, but they have their careers now, and I really admire that. I really you can see how us as young musicians can. It's very difficult to find this kind of opportunities in which an international festival can invite you, even if you don't have a lot of curriculum to perform, and maybe through that performance you will find more gigs and start your careers and everything. But they put a lot of effort in finding these young talents and raising up their careers. And as I said, it's something that I admire a lot. And also they are super family, and they share a lot of ideals with their philosophy. And yeah, asking your question on how the musical scene is different in the US to Europe, I must say that I don't know the whole US. I work mainly in the East Coast in Florida, where I organize with this festival more than 40 concerts every season, which is a lot. I mean, it gives you an idea on how the things are working there. There are differences, not only because of the flows of how you work with the theaters, the musicians, and everything, but also in the audience. I mean, the audience is super different in there than here, and some concerts which I see the program that we're programming or that I'm organizing, I read them and I say, this wouldn't work in Europe, but somehow it works amazing in there, and the people and you get amazing critics from reviewers, and the audience is crazy, and they keep coming to those kind of extravaganza programs in which you can imagine what I mean with that. And somehow you can really feel that there's a tradition in the back end of concerts in Europe, and that tradition somehow also retain us from doing new things. Mm, Usually in orchestras in Europe is hard to get not contemporary music, but music from composers that are alive or that are working actively right now in the scenes. Maybe this changes from every orchestra, right? But maybe that's because of us being too attached to these traditions that I mentioned before, that it's important, but it's more important to have a balance between past, tradition, future, and today. And in the US, it's sort of more or easier to find this, to find this dareness or brave programmers who dare to do things that someone who with a lot of tradition in the back in his backpack wouldn't do, right? And yeah, and that sometimes work, sometimes doesn't work. So yeah, you can see how I mean they are different. I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. It's just different approaches which add to the variety of the international cultural scene.
Yeah, I feel like here in Europe there's kind of these invisible rules that they still abide quite a lot.
Tradition.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's super interesting actually, and very obvious what you said, but I don't know if everyone is so aware of the fact that of course we have to think about the audience, like what we play. I mean, the audience has to like it and has to like find it interesting. And yeah, of course, like if the audience in the US is very different, then the programmers can be very different. Yeah, that's interesting.
And kind of relating to that, so at Courtiers, you work with different orchestras, and we wanted to ask about the visual impact related to the music industry, which is an important aspect. How did you decide to focus on that particularly, and how does a process of kind of rebranding, what does it mean for an orchestra institution?
Well, there's a saying in Spanish, I'm sure Paco knows it, that half of being it is pretending to be it, or showing that you are. For me, this meant a lot in communicating arts, in the terms that most times when I was working in my early ages as a concert producer in cultural management, it was so shocking to see how big of a difference were in concerts, in ticket sales, or those concerts that are well communicated, that have a very high-end communication flow, sort of. I'm not speaking just the music. I'm considering that the music was good in both of them, and those that didn't have this kind of big work behind in terms of design and marketing campaigns and everything. So I always thought or think that the arts deserve to be excellent in all the planets that are around a concert, that orbit around a concert, right? This for me meant that if we are programming a concert that has an amazing music and extraordinary musicians on it, if the poster of the concert sucks, it's going to be really difficult to defend it to an audience. You know what I mean? Or it's basically, not to. It doesn't make up to all what the concert is selling in the end. So we focused on that, and one of our mottos is to try to bring the contemporary visual tendencies or fashions that we see in movies, in very high-end brand designs, also to music, because it deserves it. It's just that. And the process of making an orchestra, who is usually, as we said, an institution that is very attached to tradition, the process of making them understand that this is something that it's important for them, it's super hard. It's becoming easier with the time, especially with the renovation of new cultural managers that are coming to the to orchestras and concerts or the series that are more aware of today's world and that are young and have seen more than these old ages cultural managers. I think it's becoming easier, but as I said, the most difficult part is making them realize that this is something that it's going to be good for them. It's going to be good for the music. So, and the process is hard, and as I said, tradition plays a very important part in all what we do, even if we sometimes do crazy stuff that seems to be very far away from tradition. One of the I was remembering one. We usually work with an orchestra here in Spain that we design the whole season on all the posters and everything. And last year we took a completely different path of what you are used to see in concert designs and everything. And we hired an acrylic, one of the most famous painters in Spain, to paint portraits of all the musicians that were coming invited to the orchestra, and all the posters, and all of that was connected. All the programming of the season was somehow connecting music with the lights, with the taste, and with smells and everything. So we painted all the posters connecting music or the music programming that they were having with food and with meals, with traditional dishes and everything. And that was something super reckless, actually. I mean, it could have went all wrong, but somehow they loved it, and everyone spoke about it, and it was super, super nice. So, but that was difficult. As I said, the most difficult part was to make them realize that this is something that it's an add-on to the music, but it's going to really empower the message of the concert.
Yeah.
So,
But I think if you do the things that you want to do well, it always works out. I mean, because now what you were explaining, like those crazy ideas, like if you would execute them in like a not really good way, of course it would be a disaster. But like if you really put a lot of thoughts into it and like do it well, then there's almost no doubt that it like can go wrong, I think. I don't know. Well, it's super interesting to talk to you about all those things. What would you say to a person that is finishing their studies now and that is maybe, well, doubting on what to do after finishing their music
well,
degree?
I would say, first of all, dare to do those things that they told you that they were impossible. Because I mean, it sounds like like on a sport run, right? But nothing is impossible, really. If you will leave it, as you were saying, if you do it nicely with a lot of heart, put in a lot of heart on it, it's going to come out nicely. You're going to achieve that point in which you are super satisfied with yourself. In terms of professional career, nothing comes in one stake. I mean that we reach that point in which we envision ourselves from very, very little steps. That sometimes or most times you don't feel that you're going forward, but I'm sure you are. And again, this sounds very philosophical, but I would recommend everyone to follow their instincts. I always recommend to follow what your heart sort of, or what your instincts says. If you are not doing the right thing, your heart is going to tell you. Or if you are not in the right place, you already know it, even if you haven't come to realize that idea. So yeah, my recommendation is be reckless, dare to do crazy things, and follow your heart.
It's a great note to end this conversation on. I think it's so important to be reckless and to remember that we're not just musicians. I mean, even if someone is 100% with their instrument, music, in whatever aspect, it's not, that doesn't really truly
Yeah.
define you. There's so many aspects
And
to you.
also being a musician is not just being an instrumentalist.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of more
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
around that. So, but before we end the episode for real, we will ask you some fire questions. And
So, what is the soundtrack for your life?
I think it will be something like a original soundtrack from a movie, like something very science fiction. All these sounds like in Dune movies, or like all these horns inspired by John Williams. I always super close to big, but also super deep in mind. You know, like I try to always have control of my mind, even though sometimes I let it fly. But yeah, I really like for me, when I'm in this very deep thinking mood, I hear like horns and very monotonous sounds.
very nice. The next fire question is: if you could dress an orchestra in not black concert gowns, what would you dress them in?
Wow, this is a good one. I think I will try to dress them like if they were in a 1920s party.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's
You know,
really
this kind
cool.
of everything is still in style, but everyone's super comfortable with what they're wearing, like showing off their own best gala.
I like that.
That's really good.
I mean, that's something not so crazy. It could
It could
happen.
happen. Yeah, you
I
could
really
totally
hope
invite
so.
us to play. I think we would love to come.
And the third fire question is: who is your most inspiring artist at the moment?
Wow, at the moment, you. That's a hard one. As I said, I've been always inspired by musicians, not only because of their music, uh, as what happened to me with Tung when I met him in Liège. Well, I met him actually in Spain before, but when I heard him play, it was something out of this world. Like, man, I cannot believe it. I didn't think that flute could be played that way. So for me, I don't think I have an artist that really he's my someone to look up to, because this usually changes with the week also. But when I find those artists that are super confident of what they do, super connected with their instrument, so much connected with the instrument that they don't really look like they are playing. It's like they are singing, right? When I find that, I I gain faith again to music and everything. So it's hard to. I don't think I have a name for you, girls.
It's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay, well, thank you so much for talking to us and giving an insight to
And for
your work.
sharing, yeah, all your thoughts. I think it's very important and interesting for, yeah, young artists to hear also about this side, because, yeah, I
It's
think,
an important side.
and it
we
doesn't
will
get
all
talked about
use.
enough. So
I really hope that this can serve someone to be also there and gain her strengths to do something that they haven't there. And actually, I think that the bottom line from my profile or my case is that if you don't wait for things to come, try to do them yourself, and then they will come up nicely.
well, I'm very certain that this will for sure serve some people to listen to what you say. So thank you so much.